Global Monetary Watch. Today is August 6th, 2026, and welcome back to another in-depth analysis of the developments shaping Iraq's financial landscape. If you've followed this story for any length of time, you've probably noticed that the biggest changes don't always arrive with dramatic headlines. More often, they emerge quietly through policy updates, banking reforms, and institutional decisions that gradually reshape the country's financial system. While many discussions continue to focus almost entirely on the exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar, today's report takes a closer look at a different side of the story, one that many analysts believe deserves just as much attention as any headline about currency values. Over the past several years, Iraq has been pursuing one of the most significant modernization efforts in its financial history. Instead of concentrating solely on monetary policy, authorities have been investing considerable effort into strengthening the country's banking infrastructure. These initiatives include expanding electronic payment systems, improving financial oversight, encouraging greater use of formal banking services, and reducing reliance on cash transactions. Individually, these developments may appear routine, but together they represent a broad effort to build a more efficient and transparent financial environment. Understanding these structural changes provides important context for anyone following Iraq's economic progress. One reason these reforms continue attracting attention is that financial systems operate best when transactions can be monitored accurately and consistently. In economies where cash dominates everyday commerce, central banks often face greater challenges in tracking money flows, enforcing compliance standards, and implementing monetary policy effectively. Digital banking systems help address these challenges by creating electronic records of transactions, improving transparency, and strengthening oversight. For Iraq, expanding digital financial services has become an important objective as policymakers seek to modernize institutions and improve confidence in the country's banking sector. Electronic payment platforms have steadily become more common throughout Iraq in recent years. Government agencies, commercial banks, retailers, and consumers are increasingly adopting digital payment methods that reduce dependence on physical cash. While this transition remains an ongoing process rather than a completed transformation, each expansion of electronic infrastructure represents another step toward a more connected financial ecosystem. Digital payment adoption can improve convenience for citizens while also giving regulators better visibility into financial activity, making the overall banking environment easier to supervise and manage. The Central Bank of Iraq has consistently emphasized reforms aimed at strengthening the country's financial framework. Alongside expanding electronic banking, the institution has focused on improving regulatory standards, enhancing supervision of licensed banks, and aligning financial practices with internationally recognized compliance expectations. These efforts are intended to improve confidence in Iraq's financial institutions both domestically and internationally. Although such reforms rarely generate the excitement associated with exchange rate speculation, they often represent the foundational work required for a stable and modern banking system. Another important element of Iraq's financial transformation involves anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing measures. Compliance with these international standards plays a major role in maintaining relationships between Iraqi banks and financial institutions around the world. Strong compliance programs help reduce financial risk, improve transparency, and support international cooperation. Over time, these improvements can strengthen confidence among foreign financial partners while encouraging broader participation in global banking networks. These developments are technical in nature, but they are widely regarded as essential components of a modern financial system. Correspondent banking relationships have also become an important topic within discussions about Iraq's financial progress. These relationships allow domestic banks to interact more effectively with foreign financial institutions, facilitating international payments, trade financing, and cross-border transactions. Maintaining these partnerships requires meeting rigorous regulatory expectations and demonstrating consistent compliance practices. Improvements in governance and operational standards can help Iraqi financial institutions strengthen these relationships, creating additional opportunities for international financial engagement while supporting broader economic activity. Observers often compare today's banking environment with conditions that existed only a few years ago. During earlier periods, compliance concerns created significant challenges for several Iraqi financial institutions, affecting access to international financial services and increasing scrutiny from regulators abroad. Since then, authorities have implemented multiple reforms designed to strengthen oversight, improve transparency, and enhance operational procedures. While progress continues to evolve, many analysts view these changes as evidence of a long-term commitment to improving Iraq's financial institutions rather than pursuing short-term adjustments. Discussions within investor communities frequently mention various exchange rate scenarios, including figures that circulate online without official confirmation. One example is the frequently discussed $4.81 valuation. It is important to distinguish between public speculation and official policy. As of today, the Central Bank of Iraq has not announced or confirmed any future exchange rate target or revaluation at that level. References to such figures generally originate from independent commentary, historical comparisons, or theoretical economic discussions rather than verified government decisions. Understanding this distinction is essential when evaluating information shared across social media and online forums. Many economists emphasize that a country's currency reflects numerous underlying economic factors rather than a single policy decision. Fiscal stability, banking strength, inflation management, foreign reserves, trade activity, investment confidence, and institutional credibility all contribute to the overall financial environment. Because of this complexity, structural reforms often receive close attention from analysts seeking to understand Iraq's long-term economic direction. While these reforms do not automatically indicate future exchange rate actions, they do provide insight into how policymakers are working to strengthen the country's financial foundations. Global energy markets also remain an important part of Iraq's broader economic picture. Oil continues to provide a substantial share of government revenue, making developments in international energy prices highly relevant to public finances. Changes in oil prices can influence budget planning, infrastructure spending, and investment priorities. At the same time, Iraqi officials have repeatedly expressed interest in diversifying the economy by encouraging growth in sectors beyond hydrocarbons. Expanding economic activity outside the energy industry is widely viewed as a long-term objective that could strengthen resilience against fluctuations in commodity markets. Alongside developments in the energy sector, Iraq has continued pursuing economic cooperation with international partners. Agreements involving infrastructure, financial services, technology, and trade are often discussed as part of broader efforts to modernize the country's economy. While the scope and implementation of individual agreements vary, they generally reflect a strategy of attracting expertise, investment, and institutional collaboration. Such partnerships are frequently viewed as mechanisms for supporting long-term development rather than producing immediate changes in monetary policy or exchange rate decisions. Digital transformation has become another major focus within Iraq's financial modernization strategy. Banks are investing in electronic platforms, expanding online services, improving payment technologies, and encouraging greater financial inclusion. These initiatives aim to make banking services more accessible to individuals and businesses while reducing operational inefficiencies associated with cash-based transactions. As digital adoption expands, regulators gain improved visibility into financial activity, which can strengthen oversight and enhance the effectiveness of compliance programs throughout the banking system. Many financial observers point out that modernization is typically a gradual process rather than a single event. Banking reforms, regulatory improvements, technological upgrades, and institutional development often occur over several years before their full impact becomes visible. Iraq's experience appears consistent with this pattern. Instead of isolated policy announcements, recent developments reflect a sequence of interconnected reforms designed to strengthen financial governance and improve the overall stability of the banking sector. This incremental approach is common among countries undertaking large-scale financial modernization. The relationship between banking reforms and broader economic confidence is another subject frequently discussed by economists. Investors, businesses, and international institutions generally place significant value on transparent regulations, reliable payment systems, and effective financial supervision. Improvements in these areas can enhance confidence in a country's financial institutions and support greater participation in economic activity. Although confidence alone does not determine exchange rates, it represents one of many factors considered when evaluating the health and credibility of a financial system. Another area receiving increased attention is financial inclusion. Expanding access to banking services allows more citizens and businesses to participate in the formal financial system. Electronic accounts, digital payment options, and modern banking products can reduce barriers to financial participation while improving efficiency across the economy. For governments and regulators, broader participation also creates more comprehensive financial data, supporting better policy decisions and stronger oversight. These objectives align with modernization strategies adopted by many emerging economies around the world. As these reforms continue, public discussions often attempt to connect every new development directly to speculation surrounding the Iraqi dinar's future value. However, economists generally caution against drawing immediate conclusions from individual policy announcements. Banking modernization, regulatory compliance, technological investment, and international cooperation each represent important developments in their own right. While these initiatives contribute to strengthening the financial system, they should not automatically be interpreted as confirmation of any specific exchange rate action unless officially announced by the relevant authorities. It is also important to recognize the difference between structural reform and monetary policy. Structural reforms focus on improving institutions, regulations, infrastructure, and governance. Monetary policy, by contrast, involves decisions related to interest rates, exchange rate management, liquidity, and financial stability. Although these two areas can influence one another over time, they remain distinct policy domains. Understanding this distinction helps provide a more balanced perspective when evaluating news reports about Iraq's banking sector and broader economic reforms. Throughout recent years, international organizations have continued encouraging reforms that strengthen governance, improve transparency, and enhance financial integrity within Iraq's economy. These recommendations often emphasize stronger regulatory frameworks, improved public financial management, digital transformation, and greater institutional accountability. Progress in these areas is generally viewed as beneficial for long-term economic development regardless of future exchange rate decisions. As such, many analysts pay close attention to these reforms because they offer insight into Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Ultimately, the most significant takeaway from today's discussion is that Iraq's financial story extends well beyond daily exchange rate speculation. The country's banking modernization efforts, expansion of digital payment systems, compliance initiatives, international partnerships, and institutional reforms collectively illustrate an ongoing transformation that deserves careful observation. At the same time, claims regarding specific future exchange rates, including widely circulated figures such as $4.81, remain unverified unless officially confirmed by the Central Bank of Iraq or other competent authorities. Separating confirmed developments from speculation allows viewers to better understand the broader economic picture. Thank you for watching Global Monetary Watch. Stay informed, follow verified developments, and we'll continue bringing you fact-based updates as Iraq's financial reforms continue to evolve. There is another important perspective that often receives far less attention than headlines about exchange rates, and it concerns how financial reforms are implemented behind the scenes. Modern banking systems depend on reliable infrastructure, secure payment networks, accurate reporting, and effective oversight. These components rarely generate dramatic news coverage because they develop gradually over time. Yet economists frequently describe them as the foundation of a resilient financial system. In Iraq's case, many of the reforms introduced during recent years have focused precisely on these less visible but highly significant areas. One of the most noticeable changes has been the steady expansion of electronic payment services across different sectors of the economy. Consumers are increasingly using payment cards, mobile banking applications, and digital transfer systems for everyday transactions. Government agencies have also continued encouraging digital payment methods in an effort to reduce administrative costs and improve efficiency. Although cash remains an important part of the economy, The gradual shift toward electronic transactions reflects a broader modernization strategy that aligns with global trends in financial technology. Commercial banks have likewise invested in upgrading their internal systems. Many institutions have expanded online banking platforms, strengthened cybersecurity measures, modernized customer services, and improved operational efficiency. These investments are designed to support growing customer demand while meeting higher regulatory expectations. Banking modernization is not simply about offering new digital services. It also involves improving data accuracy, risk management, and compliance procedures that help maintain confidence in the financial sector over the long term. International cooperation continues to play an important role in this process. Iraq has worked with foreign financial institutions, international organizations, and technical advisors to strengthen banking standards and regulatory practices. Such cooperation often includes knowledge sharing, staff training, technological assistance, and implementation of internationally recognized financial frameworks. While these efforts may seem technical, they contribute to building institutional capacity and improving the effectiveness of Iraq's banking supervision over time. Financial transparency has become another recurring theme in discussions about Iraq's economic reforms. Greater transparency helps regulators monitor financial activity more effectively, reduces opportunities for illicit transactions, and supports stronger governance throughout the banking system. Digital financial records also make it easier to identify irregularities, improve auditing processes, and strengthen accountability. These improvements benefit not only regulators, but also businesses and consumers who rely on secure and efficient financial services. Another topic frequently discussed among economists is the importance of maintaining confidence in domestic financial institutions. Public confidence encourages individuals and businesses to use banking services instead of relying primarily on cash transactions. Higher participation within the formal banking system can improve liquidity management, expand financial inclusion, and support more efficient allocation of capital throughout the economy. Building that confidence typically requires consistent regulatory improvements rather than short-term policy announcements. Observers also continue monitoring Iraq's broader economic indicators, including inflation trends, government spending, trade activity, foreign reserves, and private sector development. These factors collectively provide a more comprehensive picture of the country's financial health than any single statistic alone. While exchange rate discussions often dominate online conversations, professional economic analysis usually considers a much wider range of indicators when evaluating long-term financial stability and institutional progress. The widespread discussion surrounding the Iraqi dinar demonstrates how closely people follow developments in the country's economy. However, it is equally important to distinguish between verified information and unconfirmed speculation. Numerous figures and theories circulate across social media, online forums, and unofficial commentary, but not all are supported by official announcements or documented policy decisions. Responsible analysis requires evaluating information based on credible sources and recognizing the difference between confirmed developments and public speculation. Looking ahead, analysts are expected to continue monitoring Iraq's banking reforms, digital payment expansion, regulatory improvements, and economic policies as they evolve. These developments may influence the country's financial environment over time, but their long-term effects will depend on many interconnected economic and institutional factors. Because financial reform is an ongoing process, understanding the broader context remains more valuable than focusing exclusively on isolated headlines or unsupported claims. As always, our goal at Global Monetary Watch is to examine verified developments, explain complex financial topics in a clear and balanced manner, and separate established facts from speculation. Iraq's banking modernization represents an important chapter in the country's economic development, and its progress deserves careful attention. We'll continue following official announcements, policy updates, and institutional reforms as they emerge, providing factual coverage that helps viewers better understand the evolving financial landscape. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next update.